The writs are drawn up, and now the race can heat up. The formal start of the election also means the former dissolution of the House, and that means all the bills winding their way through the legislative process are now dead. Jessica Smith-Cross is the editor of QP Briefing, and she joins us now for a look at what legislation has gone by the wayside. Nice to have you back here.
Thank you.
We should just explain, I guess, that if a bill hasn't become if a bill has not become law by the time the House rises, that's it, right?
It's dead.
It's dead, and it doesn't sort of, resurrect itself the next time around. That's it.
That's right.
How many bills are we saying RIP for today?
65, and one that's merely procedural that doesn't really count.
Okay, so 66 altogether. How much time do you think the bowels of Queen's Park spent writing these bills, debating these bills, moving these bills through the process?
Oh, if you count the time that the individual MPPs spent working on them, I'm going to guess in the hundreds of hours, but I couldn't possibly know for sure.
So hundreds of hours of work essentially go down the drain with the dissolution of this House. Okay, I mean, the next question's pretty obvious. The timing of this election is not a surprise. It is in law. So how is it that things didn't get organized fast enough to make sure all this stuff became law before the House rose?
Well, one of the big factors was the government prorogued in March. So a lot of the bills that are dying today had been introduced prior to that prorogation, which meant they died then as well. So a lot of the bills that MPPs had been working on for years, most of these are private members' bills, had been introduced. They died. The MPPs gave them one last shot, but they're not going to pass. And the reason why they're not going to pass, or some of them, is actually quite interesting. Often at the end of this session, the House leaders get together and they discuss what private members' bills everybody agrees on, and they can pass quickly with unanimous consent. But politics being what they are at this moment, the House leaders actually couldn't come to an agreement on that this time, so these bills aren't going to go anywhere.
So they've in fact died twice.
Some of them have, yes,
They've had a double death. Huh. Were some of them so controversial that Liberals and New Democrats couldn't support one, Tories couldn't support others? Is that what happened?
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole mix. Bills that are supported by one party, maybe 2 out of 3 parties. But there are some out there that everybody would have agreed on. Filipino Heritage Month is one of the ones that's going to die, and I don't think anybody was going to object to that.
But they didn't get through in time, so that's that.
Because they can't agree with each other.
They can't agree with each other on other things. The York University strike persists, despite the fact that they sent an arbitrator in there, a mediator in there to try and fix things. There was a bill brought before the legislature to end that.
Yes.
What's happened to that?
So that was introduced on Monday. It was the last bill that was introduced before everything will go away soon. So graduate assistant TAs, they've been on strike for a couple of months. The government asked William Kaplan to get in there and look how things were going. On Friday, he said there's an impasse. The two sides are far apart. They're not going to come back together. Some students will have their semesters at risk. So on Monday, the Labour Minister tried to introduce a back-to-work bill that would have sent the parties to mediation arbitration, but the NDP blocked it.
Which they traditionally do.
Of course, they have an alignment with the unions on that issue. So that will die. That is the only government bill that will die on the order paper.
All the rest are private members' bills.
That's right.
So that is to say then that the attempt by the government to legislate back to work these workers is not going to happen.
No.
So this strike is going to go on.
Until the parties can come to an agreement.
Which clearly won't be before the end of the school year.
Yes.
So it will persist into the fall, presumably.
Yes. I know the school is trying to minimize the impact on students, but it'll be up to, I think, individual cases.
Well, let's go through some of these here, okay? In no particular order, Bill 43, the Time to Care Act. Andrea Horvath herself put this one forward. What's that about?
She did. This is at least the 3rd time that this bill has been introduced. It's come before from the NDP's health critic, France Gélinas. It's a bill about making sure that residents of long-term care homes get at least 4 hours of hands-on care on average in each long-term care home. It's meant to increase the time for personal support and nursing care that elderly patients get. The interesting thing about this bill is it's also part of the NDP's platform. So if we have an NDP government, this will happen. The government sort of agrees with them on this. They're committing to, by 2022, increase the average number of care across the province to 4 hours per patient, but there's a significant difference, and this bill, which would have made an impact on people's lives, is also going to, it also has died on the order
Also
paper.
has died.
Yeah.
Bill 5, Home Care and Community Services Amendment Act by Lisa Gretzky, also known as Dan's Law. What's the history behind that one?
That's right. It's actually a fairly simple, straightforward idea. It's that if you've come to Ontario from a different province, you shouldn't have to wait 3 months to have your public health insurance kick in. So this is named after Dan Duma, who had this problem. He actually passed away before the 3 months kicked in for him, and his physician, his palliative care physician, had a hard time arranging the appropriate care for him. So that's what that's about.
So this would have an impact, presumably, on immigrants, refugees as well.
I believe it's coming from another province in Canada, covered by a different province's healthcare system.
Gotcha. Bill 33, the Compassionate Care Act, introduced by the youngest member ever, Sam Osterhoff. What's that about?
Well, that's right. The youngest MPP, his first bill is about people at the end of their lives. So it's about hospice care and palliative care. It's, again, a pretty simple bill. It would have required the ministry to look into the issue and report back on a year for how to strengthen hospice care and palliative care. Also hasn't passed. Also
dead. 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds will not vote in the June 7th election because Arthur Potts's bill, Bill 38, didn't make it. What's that about?
Well, that was about lowering the voting age to 16. That one I'm not sure was ever supposed to pass. Arthur Potts talked to one of our reporters and described it as a trial balloon. He wanted to get the issue out there so that people were debating it and considering it, and they really have. And the bill made it all the way through second reading. So it's an idea that is out there for debate and discussion. Maybe one day down the road, 16-year-olds will vote.
Well, we can say that actually about all these bills. You know, when the next legislature comes back in the fall, 42nd Parliament in this case, they can pick any of these up, right, and go with them again.
That's right. They're already written. There's been some debate on them already, so people know what the issues are. It's helpful.
The numbers will be different, though, presumably.
Yes.
Right?
Who knows what the next legislature will look like.
Now, here's one that, when it was brought forward by a Liberal backbench MPP, even the Liberal minister in charge said, "I don't like this," and the government wasn't going to pick it up. But it got some attention. Bill 11, the Phones Down, Heads Up Act, known as the Zombie Law.
That's right. MPP Ivan Baker wrote this one. He's had a couple of bills that you would describe as talkers, interesting things that people like to discuss by the water cooler that are debatable. So this was about not being on the phone when you cross the street. There were a couple of exceptions to it if you're making an emergency call or if you're continuing a phone call you've already made. But as soon as he introduced it the first time, and this is another one of those that has been reintroduced, pedestrian advocates were not happy. They made a fairly compelling argument that distracted drivers kill people, but there hasn't been an increase in distracted pedestrians being a cause of these pedestrian fatalities or casualties.
Should we say for the record here that if you have your head down texting while you're walking through an intersection, you're an idiot anyway?
Maybe don't do that.
Maybe don't do that,
but
right.
Maybe it's not the best idea to find people.
I heard Tina give a little snicker back there. You like that? You like the way I put that, didn't you, Tina?
I've been known to text myself right into walls.
So. We've all done it. Okay, Bill 29, the Combating Eating Disorders Act in Ontario. Same guy pitched that one too,
yes,
right?
Ivan Baker. Yeah. So this is a bill, it didn't get very far, but the idea was that advertisements that are retouched, photoshopped, should be labeled as such, and that there would be fines when ad companies don't do that. They look at expanding this to movies and TV down the road. The idea is that it doesn't promote an unhealthy body and image that ultimately leads to eating disorders.
The former journalist Percy Hatfield proposed Bill 13, which was going to be a tribute, if you like, to Gord Downey. Yes. We were going to have a poet laureate in Ontario.
Yeah, that's
right.
What
would a poet laureate in Ontario do?
Promote poetry and literature in Ontario. It was, again, one of those straightforward bills on something that I think would have pretty good public support, popular support. Gord Downey was a very popular man.
And it's not going to happen now. Bill 40 was Garrett's Legacy Act. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, this one has quite the backstory. So a 15-year-old boy from Napanee unfortunately died last year when an unanchored soccer goal fell down. Reports at the time said
the goalpost fell on top.
Yeah, the goalpost, like on a school soccer field. He apparently been doing chin-ups on it. His friend said maybe to impress his girlfriend. It fell down. And when you look into this is actually, unfortunately, a tragedy that has happened way more often than you'd think in places around the world. But nobody knows that a soccer goal is a risk like this. So the bill had some ideas on how to make sure they're anchored and how to do complaints if you see an unanchored soccer goal.
So the fact is, there are presumably many unsafe soccer goalposts around the province, which will now not be anchored properly because this law didn't pass.
And we thought when they first told us about this bill that it had a good shot at passing. It initially came from PC MPP Todd Smith, but he got Liberal MPP Sophie Koala to co-sponsor it. And usually when there's that sign of the parties working together, things have a better shot of getting somewhere.
But it didn't in this case.
Nope.
Now that's strange. Why wouldn't, I mean, presumably, this is sort of like common sense safety regulation that you'd want to pass. Yeah. Why would there be problems around that?
I don't have any inside knowledge on what happened, but both the government and the opposition parties have a little bit of control on these private members' bill. The opposition parties, when they're introducing them, can sort of decide they have a ballot number, but they can switch places and push up the important bills so they get introduced earlier. And the government has a lot of control over what gets through committee fast enough. So this bill just didn't make it to the goal.
Okay, Bill 14, the Personal Information Protection Act, is also dead. Harinder Thakkar, who is from Mississauga and retiring, brought this one forward. What would that have done?
It was a very unusual bill. Most of the private members' bills we've been talking about are pretty simple and straightforward. They're usually written by a private member and their staff. So this came from Liberal MPP Harinder Thakkar. He's a former minister, but he's not a minister anymore. He wrote a very long and very complex bill all about how private corporations can use and disclose private information, arguably a very important issue. To see it come from a private member was remarkable. The bill itself got to second reading and then stopped.
It got to second reading and then that was it.
Yeah.
Didn't get well, we'll go through some of that. The path a bill travels to become law, I'm going to hold off on for a second, because if this stuff comes back, I do want us to have a chance to explain to people how this how this works. Bill 52, the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions Act, by Teresa Armstrong. What happened with that one?
That's another bill that was an NDP idea that you will see in the NDP platform. So the idea was that mental health keeps getting sort of forgotten about or shifted aside. It was something that Andrea Horwath talked about actually in the recent leaders debate. The idea is that mental health and addiction should be handled by one single ministry so that it's never forgotten by the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Housing when other things are happening.
Now, I remember back in the day, and we're talking about now when the Progressive Conservatives were in power for 42 straight years, it was almost, it had to snow in July in Ontario for a private member's bill to get passed. In other words, it was extremely rare, almost never happened. How about now? Is there more, do they pass with more regularity, generally speaking, now?
I think so. I wasn't around back then.
Thank you for telling me how old I am. Appreciate that. Yeah.
But yeah, we have seen a number of interesting ones pass, and especially those bills, like I mentioned before, that maybe after one or two attempts get public support or get support from other parties than just the one that was introduced, then you see them passed, or then you see them adopted into government legislation. So the idea lives on, just not as a private member's bill.
And tell us why a government would, under other circumstances, take the gist of a private member's bill, and if you like, kind of steal the ideas in there and put it in a government bill.
Yeah, if they're doing it right, they might give credit for the original idea, maybe coming from an opposition party or a private member in their own party. But when it's a good idea and they can put it into a government bill, maybe even a similar one on a similar topic, it can go through committee at the same time, get looked at, and then pass. And then they can probably take a little credit for it too, which everybody likes to do.
But presumably there's a bit of a reluctance, particularly in an election year, for the government to allow an opposition private member's bill to pass because they don't want to give any credit to the opposition? Unfortunately,
that tends to happen in the election year, absolutely.
And they all do it?
Yes.
Yeah, they all do it. Okay. So again, if we're thinking forward right now, the House is dissolved.
Yes.
There are no more MPPs.
Yes.
The Cabinet's still running the government of Ontario. The Premier and the Cabinet are still there doing their thing. But all the MPPs are sort of free agents again, and everybody's just a candidate right now. All of the work that went into these bills, for the MPPs who get reelected, do they just champion these issues once they come back in the fall? Is that what happens?
Yes, if any of these MPPs remain as MPPs and not just MPPs and not cabinet ministers, and if this remains an issue that they care about. For example, either Todd Smith or Sophie Kiwala could champion the Garrett's Legacy Act. I know they both think it's a very good idea. Presumably they could come back, reintroduce the bill, and hope that at the start of a session they have more time to get it done and get it passed. Or that the government of the day will agree with them and work it into the government legislation.
Well, let's get, at the risk of getting a little more in the weeds here, to improve the safety of soccer goalposts so kids don't get hurt or, God forbid, even die, as has happened in this case, why does that require a fully passed act of the Ontario legislature as opposed to you know, some cabinet minister just simply passing a regulation through cabinet that doesn't require all of the levers of government to be brought to bear?
I don't know of anything specific in this bill that couldn't be done by regulation. There might be a detail that I'm missing. And I also don't know why anybody would oppose it. I know that it's a hard issue to oppose. I mean, taking off the objective hat for just a second, this feels like a bill that should have passed or an issue that should have been handled.
Is there a concern that there's too much regulation in society already, and maybe we don't, even on a safety measure like this, we don't want to overregulate? And
the ground to stand on is kids getting hit by soccer goals doesn't seem like the most rational argument there.
Okay, I also want you to give our viewers some sense about how these things actually, if and when they do become law, how that actually happens. We'll do a bit of a Civics 101 class here, because the fact is we do use a fairly arcane and ancient method of passing laws in the province of Ontario in our parliamentary system. So how does a bill get drafted? How does it make its way through? Take us through it.
So most of these bills, the private members' bills, there will be an issue that an MPP cares about, or one that maybe their party has suggested they should care about. They'll look into the issue. They'll get a little bit of help drafting the law.
So they don't have to write it themselves?
No, they have help within their party or within the government, if they're a government minister on a regular bill, to draft the law. And then they'll table the bill. They almost always pass.
Tabling it means what?
They introduce it into the House, and nobody objects, and it passes first reading just like that.
Okay.
We see that all the time.
And so it passes first reading.
Yes.
That's a vote of the legislature.
Yes.
Then it goes to second reading.
Yes.
What does that involve?
Well, first it has to get there. So we talked a little bit before about how the opposition parties have a little bit of control over when their private members' bills are going to come up. Same with the government. So there's a ballot system. There's like literally ballots drawn.
It's a lottery.
Yeah, that tells when the MPPs have a shot at introducing their private members' bill and moving them forward. They can work amongst each other to trade positions or to skip their turn if their bill's not quite ready yet. And then if they pass second reading, after a little bit of debate and a vote, it will go to committee. And that's when it'll get studied and changes made.
This is where they go actually clause by clause through the whole bill, right?
Yes. And this is where the government has a little bit of control. A majority government has control of the committee, and they can decide what bills it will study in what order. So when you have a situation where there isn't enough time, it's generally because the government has decided to put something else first.
And I presume, just to take a step back for a sec, I presume they have a lottery system, because if every single member wanted to propose a private member's bill, there's just not enough time in the calendar to get it all done.
Yeah, I think you'd have to talk to a historian who knows where that came from, but that seems reasonable to me.
So they've got to have a lottery so that you get to do yours, you get to do yours, and sorry, you folks who are number 107, you don't get to do yours.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so it goes through the committee process.
Yes.
And they have their debates, and they go clause by clause, and they take out what they don't like, and they leave in what they do like, and they amend this, that, and the other thing. Then it comes back for third reading?
Yes.
And what happens at third reading?
They have a debate.
More debate?
They debate it a lot, yes.
Okay.
And then they will have a vote.
In the full legislature?
Yes.
And when it passes third reading, even that's not the end of it, right?
That is not the end. There is the royal assent process. The lieutenant governor will come in and give the bill royal assent.
Which she did yesterday, right?
Yes.
For a lot of the bills that actually did make it through,
yes.
Elizabeth Dowdeswell has to come in and give royal assent.
And she can do that in the chamber in front of everybody and make a ceremony of it, or she can do it off in private. But at the end of this session, they decided to have her come in. She also made some remarks and give royal assent to a few final government bills.
Technically, legally, constitutionally, traditionally, she can say no, right? She has the power to do that.
Yes.
But she doesn't.
I think not. No, never.
No, she hasn't, and it hasn't been, I mean, that's a power that hasn't been used in 100 years.
Yes.
But technically, it's still on the book. The powers of reservation and disallowance, they can, whatever bill they don't like, they technically have the right to say no. But they never do.
That's right. There's one bill we haven't talked about.
Go ahead.
The one I mentioned is merely procedural, and it's along a similar vein. So after the lieutenant governor gives a speech from the throne to begin a session, the House will table a bill that is just a procedural thing to signal its independence from the Queen.
Ah.
So that one is not passing either, but it was never intended to.
Is that Bill 1?
That's Bill 1.
That's Bill 1. And they do it every single session, don't they?
Yep.
Premier gets up and says, I'm continuing a 1,000-year-old tradition.
An ancient parliamentary right,
Right.
Actually, yeah.
And that one didn't pass either.
Well, no.
Does that mean our democracy is going to hell in a handcart?
I think it's supposed to work that way.
Okay, got it. Boy, we know way more about sausage making now than we sure did about 20 minutes ago. Jessica Smith-Cross, the editor of QP Briefing, thanks so much for coming into TVO tonight.
Thank you.
And good luck on the hustings.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.